What was created by God? The answer to the first question is univocal for all the Cathars. God created only immaterial, incorruptible, spiritual things, and this is unequivocally also Dante's thinking. Before moving on to Dante, one must make a very important distinction. According to the Cathars, creation did not happen in time, but all creatures exist ab eterno, from eternity, and they emanate from God, like the light or the rays of the sun, in which it does not precede its rays in time, but only as a cause. This vision implies a concept of creation very different from that of the Old Testament. It has nothing to do with either saying or doing, and least of all to do with the forming. One can speak of emanation, a doctrine found in Hebraic Kabbalah and in Plotinus's Neoplatonism, but unlike these, for the Cathars, not all the world is created in this way, but rather only the eternal and incorruptible things, especially the heavens, that the Cathars believed are eternal. Page 77. At odds with the Bible, in which many times it is said that they will perish, they will expire, and they will dissolve. Eternal in the double sense of without end and also without beginning. And this aspect is present in the comedy. Beatrice's discourse on the creation of the world is found in Canto 7 of Paradise and is divided in two parts, which both contain elements of Catharism. I will deal with them in full. In the first part, Beatrice says, the godly goodness that has banished every envy from its own self burns in itself, and sparkling so, it shows eternal beauties. All that derives directly from this goodness is everlasting, since the seal of goodness impresses an imprint that never alters. Whatever reigns from it immediately is fully free, for it is not constrained by any influence of novel things. Paradise 7, 64 to 72. In summary, it can be said that what God creates directly, without means, that is, without intermediaries, without the participation of secondary causes, is immortal, so it has no end, and is free because it is not constrained by the influence of the heavens. What is heretical in these verses? Just to begin with, the idea that God creates some things directly and also with the participation of secondary causes, to use the expression of official criticism, isn't absolutely orthodox because it doesn't correspond to the account in Genesis, but rather almost to the letter to Plato's Timaeus. The most heretical thing, however, is the picture of God that creates emanating sparks. At verse 74, Dante will use the word irradiates, that corresponds to the Cathar doctrine, according to which, as we have seen, the creatures emanate from God like the light or the rays of the sun, and so are co eternal with God, and in fact, Dante defines them as eternal beauties. Page 78. It remains to be seen what these eternal beauties are that emanate from God. As we will see, it is not the world. Dante immediately spots a contradiction. It is true that whatever is created by God is incorruptible, given that in nature everything dies and is consumed. Beatrice turns then to the argument and gives voice to this doubt. You say, I see the air, I see the fire, the water, and the earth, and all their mixtures come to corruption, and a short while endure. And these things notwithstanding were created. Therefore, if that which I have said were true, they should have been secure against corruption. Paradise 7, 124 to 129. To this objection by Dante, Beatrice replies, the angels, brother, and the land sincere in which thou art, created may be called, just as they are in their entire existence. But all the elements which thou hast named, and all those things which out of them are made, by a created virtue are informed. Created was the matter which they have, created was the informing influence within these stars that round about them go. The soul of every creature and of the plants, by its potential temperament, attracts the ray and the motion of the holy lights. Paradise 7, 130 to 141. Page 79. It is a most complex discourse, but from which is revealed that God has only created the angels, the celestial bodies or heavens, the real country, in distinct material before the forming of the elements. The informing virtue, which is the influence from the heavens. Only these are the beautiful eternals that emanate sparkling from God, incorruptible, immortal, spiritual. Such are the angels, but also the heavens and the celestial bodies, because at that time it was believed, based on the physics of Aristotle, that the heavens, including the planets and the stars, were made of ether, the famous fifth essence, which, unlike the first four elements, is everlasting. Also, matter is not material. It sounds like wordplay, but it isn't. In the cosmogonies of all traditions, the first act consists of form and matter, or spirit and matter. So says the Bible, that begins with the words, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." And heaven and earth, what were they if not spirit and matter? So said Plato in the Timaeus, where the first thing created by the demiurge was Uranus and Gaia, heaven and earth. So also in Hindu tradition, where the first step in divine manifestation is the division between Purusha and Prakriti, spirit and matter. In all these cases, material means the principal matter that precedes, as Dante explains, the formation of the four elements and therefore of the physical world. This, as yet indistinct matter, is what Dante then calls, using the terminology of scholastic philosophy, a potential integration of impulses, a whole in which all is still potentially waiting to receive a determined form. On the one hand, so, there are angels and the heavens that form a whole because the angels move the heavens. On the other, indistinct matter, thanks to informing virtue, that is, the power to inform, to give form, the angels and the heavens give form to indistinct matter, creating all the other things, both the elements and all their mixtures, the things that out of them are made, that is, the plants, the animals, etc., and their souls, as the last tercet above states. This discourse presents many heretical aspects. For example, the idea that animals and plants have a soul is a belief of the Manichaeans, page 80, and the Cathars, not of the Catholics. That not only animals and plants, but even stones have a soul, is also clearly stated by Dante in the Banquet. It is a heretical vision, also because it doesn't correspond to the Bible account, that talks neither about angels or matter or informing virtue, but says that God created the earth, the plants, the stars, the animals, and man. But even more heretical is the idea that creation might only be in part created by God and in part created by the angels and the heavens. In this case, we are not dealing with one of his inventions. Criticism does not confront the problem or say that here Dante puts forward an idea that is not found in the theological texts, at least in those known to all, which is not true. In the theological text among the best known, the Summary Against the Gentiles by Thomas Aquinas, this doctrine is mentioned, disputing it. The doctrine of mediated creation, writes Bruno Nardi, is fought against by all the theologians in the time of Dante. Thomas recalls the opinion of certain old heretics who say that God did not create the universe, but the angels. So Thomas defined as heretics those who claimed that the world was not created by God, but by the angels. He attributed this doctrine to Avicenna, and above all, to the Book of Causes, a treatise inspired by Neoplatonism in the 12th century, whose theses were presented by Thomas, who then contested them and reaffirmed that to create belongs to God alone. Only God can create. Typical and exclusive to the Cathars at that time was the conviction that God had only created immaterial, incorruptible, and spiritual things, and this corresponded undeniably to the creation vision pictured by Dante, that had as its object only immaterial things, the angels, the heavens, the principal material, and the informing virtue.